food that we consume or we used to consume back then was more healthier. Back in the days, our forefathers would wear, skin or sisal. It was very sustainable, and that's something that we as Africans bring to the table. But beyond that, there's the other aspect of identity, which, as Krista has mentioned, if you look at the Louis Vuitton collection, you can easily identify it with Kenya, and specifically Maasai's. So that's something that we are very strong at. If you go down to South Africa, there's a designer called Matsoha, who has very nice prints that are inspired by his, I believe it's Soha tribe. So that's a cultural identity that we quite have, that we can actually leverage on when it comes to the marketplace. The other thing I think that is quite fundamental but has not been properly harnessed is innovation. If you look at, for instance, our fabric, the Kitenge fabric, there's not too much about Kitenge as far as innovation is concerned. It's still the same pattern, same print, same layout. So we'd like to see more. I think for pattern developers, we'd like to see more on innovation as far as this fabrics are concerned. In the coast, we have a fabric called Kishutu. For the longest time since I was born, it's the same outline. So innovation is something that we can actually explore to redevelop our product and make it more scalable and more attractive if we are to look at competing with the global south. So I think for me, those would be my core points.
Yes. I think I'll just add on to what Neha said about value. For example, 80% of Kenyans wear second-hand clothing, and that's a raw material that we have in vast quantities. For example, let's see what Mabatini has done or Afurema is doing. As much as Mitumba is not our identity, but it's what we have. So when I see fashion designers and brands leveraging on it and turning it into these beautiful patterns, I feel like it's one of the ways we can add on to our contribution to fashion or try to put ourselves out there. So yeah, value and innovation, I think that's where we have to go.
Yeah, so the role of Reface is also to tell Kenyans about their history. So I'll tell you a very, very small story when she comes back to this, the Mitumba. So, as the coast was one of the largest exporters of cotton and silk in the world, actually the top quality of cotton and silk came from the East African coast. This was all the way from 500 AD all the way to 1500 AD until the invasion of the Portuguese, where they came and burned down all the factories and banned the growing of cotton and silk so that they could infiltrate the market with inferior European and Asian goods, right? History repeats itself when you don't know it. So what the Swahilis did, because they run the entire market of, I guess not even, I don't want to call it sub-Saharan Africa. It's like Central Africa and down. What is that? Anyway, that part of Africa, they were going to the Congo. So the Congolese were, they knew a certain kind of quality. They wanted a certain kind of quality. The Maasais expected a certain kind of quality. The Zambians, the Zimbabweans, everybody expected a certain quality of fabric that was coming from the Swahilis, right? That they were trading, because they were the only culture on this side that actually wove textile. So what they would do, and this is something hopefully we can do and is being done in Europe, is they unraveled all those inferior goods and rewove it in the top quality. So you're receiving, like, I'd say 100 thread count, and you're reweaving to a 3,000 thread count. So this is what they did. So if they could do it with no machines, guess what we could do now? So what I say is that we are the least polluted continent in the world because we skipped the industrial age. But guess what? We can now lead it and quantum leap into green technology and lead the world in fashion, right? So, and this is coming to tell you like about the role of storytelling in fashion. And if we do not tell our stories, then we will not know where we can go, because our history has our codes. And what I am so happy to see is that everywhere that I go, of course, I'm always the oldest, and the future of fashion is so bright because you, Gen Z, are taking it over, and that you're actually interested in sustainable fashion in region. By the way, I don't use the word sustainable because it's a greenwashing word. It is so vast and wide. You're sustaining what? We're already on the way to hell. Like, what are you sustaining, right? So are you slowing it down? No, so you regenerate. Regenerate means restoration and healing. So we need to heal the planet first and restore it, and then we sustain that, right? So you will always hear me use that word. Thank you, my one fan. Okay. So, and that quickly transitions into how do we use sustainability as a competitive edge? Because this is now something that we have for free. So how do we use that as a competitive edge? And now that there's 13 legislations in Europe on sustainable fashion. So there is Europe now, 40% of anything that is imported into Europe has to be sustainable. So our EPZs can compete, like if you're doing fossil fuel fashion. And so when we're encouraging brands that deal with fossil fuel, what are we actually telling our younger generation of fashion producers and manufacturers? So our question is, so my question in that sustainable space is, how, with this increasing demand for ethical and sustainable fashion globally, how can Kenya capitalize on its sustainability practices, right? Of which we already know we do naturally. So how can we use our own sustainability to do that? Oh, and Neha is such a perfect person to say that.
Well, I think using sustainability, first of all, is understanding what that really means. And sustainability to me means creating a circular economy where you are able to create a system that does not require anything else except its internal systems to rely on its success and to continue its life, longevity. And for me, that means, if I'm going to talk fashion, that means as a fashion designer creating versatile pieces, because when you say, slowing down, I say the same thing, the slow life. And that means, creating pieces that get better with age, number one, so that actually increases your product value over time, Number two, creating versatile pieces that can be worn in more than one ways, and creating pieces that so versatile, innovate, and quality. I think those are the first three ways. But as you start to now create those pieces in the value chain, you must look at how you're able to source your materials, your resources locally as much as possible, and how you're able to tune that piece or that product that you want to create to capture your local market, and to convince and create awareness and educate the people around you on why they should purchase this piece and why it's good to purchase these pieces, right? I also have a natural skincare brand called the Natural Moms Company, and so this is exactly what I've been doing for 5 years, is to create a product that works with locally produced resources as much as possible. And the one thing that I actually realized when I created this brand was the idea for a lot of Kenyan brands is, the success, and I've made it, means that my product has landed on another continent. And when I spoke to someone about my products landing on another continent, I realized that actually my product wasn't made for people living on that continent. My product is made for people living on this continent because I'm using the natural resources within my environment to create a product that's like a farm to skin product. That means that whatever you are consuming in your environment also makes you thrive, whether it's farm to food, farm to table, whether it's your clothes that are sourced naturally or locally within your environment, whether it's your skincare. Everything that you feed yourself from your immediate environment is what really sustains you and actually helps you thrive as much as possible, because that period of time from when the product has been created to the time that you either wear it, consume it in whichever way you're consuming it, the less time that it's been on the shelf means it's a healthier product for you, including fabric. And you know, back a few centuries ago, they used to actually use linen in hospitals because linen is a healing fabric. And until they scrapped that entire thing, this is actually how people used to live, because even the fabrics that they were exposed to, hemp, is a healing fabric. It holds a certain frequency, and now, unfortunately, our entire economy is covered in polyester fabric that we need to actually now figure out, innovate on how to change that and upscale it into something that we are not giving ourselves cancers from, you know, and really being conscious of what we're putting into our skin, what we're absorbing in every single way. And that to me is sustainable. It's a complete lifestyle switch and a mindset change from everything that you expose yourself to, whether it's things that you're watching, whatever you're listening to, you're wearing, what you're eating, what you're consuming. It's every single filter around you that you are absorbing as a human being, and how can you sustain yourself longer using these sort of tactics.
Thank you. I believe that, excuse me, the approach is, as you said, it's a linear, circular approach, which has different factors involved, and one of them for me I think is a policy factor. If you look at the industry back in the 80s, it was quite different from how it is now. For instance, in the 80s, before the onset of what we used to call structural adjustment programs that were introduced by government as a result of the economic downturn that the country faced then, and just like many other African countries, there had to be some level of concessions that government made from a policy side to receive funding from World Bank and IMF. And one of the preconditions was to liberalize the textile industry, and that meant then you had players outside Kenya that came in to actually get a share of the market. So for us to really look at a shift, we need to look at policy. It requires a lot of political goodwill from the government of the day, so that when we say we want to ban polyester fabrics or polyester apparels flocking into the country, then we now begin to take a very different shift. So policy is very critical. The other thing I feel that we are very well blessed with is natural resources. We have the right environment to grow the right products required to process organic fabric. I will tell you, bamboo, there's hemp, there's pineapple waste, which can actually make very good fabric. So we have the right ecosystem. Even sugarcane can make very good fabric. We have quite a lot at our disposal, and that's a competitive edge that we have over the other players in Europe and in America and South in Asia that we can actually leverage on. And so I think when we take that shift in policy, then we create the right enabling environment for investors to invest. No one would want to invest in an environment that has a lot of economic uncertainty. So we need to make sure, and that's why at the council we get government to create policies that resonate with the needs of the day for the industry. So I'll be very, very passionate to see if there is a shift in policy, especially by the Kenyan government on matters textile and apparel, to see that we can only consume, or we can actually only produce something that is very friendly to the environment. So I think that would be a very good base, and it will actually just create quite a very enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
Speaking of an ecosystem, as we speak right now, I like to say that the fashion industry has a problem, and we are at a panic state right now. ACT already says we are kickstarting ecosystems for circularity in Africa, but it's now becoming sad because Africa is not being put or included in conversations about bettering or making infrastructures for us to process textile waste as a global nation. Right now, the focus is either on the UK or the EU or the US, but here's the thing, Africa has been processing this textile waste since millennium. It's in Africa that you're seeing the landfills that are filled with textiles. It's in Africa where we already, actually, it's very funny how even if Mitumba comes here, we have found a very economical way or a good system for it to become circular within us. Like, as I said, 80% of Kenyans wear textile, or wear mitumba, sorry. So I feel like the only way we can leverage from this is if we kickstart building infrastructure. We need to be the pioneers for textile waste or processing textile waste. So we need more, as Lisa said, storytellers, we need more activists, we need more innovation or innovative people to help us in this whole process. Yeah.
We need more consumers, more importantly. And and I think Neha is a big, and actually this entire platform is about having people consume what is sustainable and what is regenerative for our environment. We cannot consume anything that will harm us. First of all your clothing, I mean, everybody is in the fashion industry. There is nobody anywhere. I don't care whether you're a scientist, a doctor, you're in the fashion industry. As long as you're not working naked, you're in the fashion industry. So, and I mean, you're a fashion consumer. So if we educate people, and unfortunately our other panelist is on his way and he's part of the institution, the institutional part of fashion is our institutes. And why aren't we teaching environmentalism? Why aren't we teaching from childhood, from ECD? Right? ECD is devolved, by the way. So you can put anything in the ECD. Like I'll tell you right now, because I'm from Mombasa and Kilifi County. Our ECDs in Mombasa and Kilifi County, our little babies all know about regenerative fashion. So, and we do full textile collecting in every single public school, public nursery in Kilifi and Mombasa counties. So these kids, and they're very aware, and you know like how kids are persistent. They will go and tell their parents, no, you're not throwing out textile. Textile cannot be thrown out. They bring it back to school and they know all these different ways of recycling. The one thing that I've been trying to advocate in those village schools is that they cannot recycle polyester. No fossil fuel recycling. You cannot recycle fossil fuel to get back on your skin. Right? Because anything, I mean, you're just slowing down its deterioration. So that just cannot happen. But what is Kenya's capacity? I mean, maybe I should be asking myself this. What is Kenya's capacity for actually producing eco-friendly textiles and garments? And garments? Like, yeah, what is our hope? I wish. We had some textile manufacturers supposed to be here, but one of the things I remember in my one of my past panels is that nobody has a machine. I mean, no textile manufacturer in Kenya has a machine that can do 100% organic fabric. Do you guys know that? right? So they always have to do polyester blends because that is the count that they have to do. And so we need investors in this space. I'm hoping the Gen Zs can get the correct investors to do this. So what is our capacity to producing eco-friendly textiles and garments? And also, what is the role of circular fashion models in the whole recycling field? I think you can answer that, please. And what are the opportunities to implement ethical fashion?
I think for all of that, I think the capacity is infinite depending on, I mean, the kind of resources that we currently have on the continent. I believe it just really does come down to government assistance and private investment. But I think that once you have that ball rolling, for me, the possibilities are endless. They're just completely endless from everything. No.
What's our capacity in a real sense?
Like now? I think if we're able to start even a little bit of production, to start breeding that culture, to start that awareness, we have to pioneer that. We have to start somewhere.
About the affordability, what's your stance on affordability?
So I think that one of the other ways to encourage buy-in into sustainable fabric is to really truly understand the essence of the quality and the value of the fabric that's being produced. Number one, its healing capacities. And number two, when we have transparent value chains and use that to educate the buyer can then really understand the process that is undergone to produce that specific fabric. And then that creates the buy-in for the fabric. It is always currently, extremely expensive because I think, for me, a lot of the raw materials that are produced in Kenya are in the sort of EPZ zone, and most of them are for export quality only. Like less than sort of 5% of that material is actually available, even though Lisa, you mentioned that there is a policy for 20% of that to be locally available. For me, in my skincare business, none of it is available. We use essential oils and we have to buy them back at import pricing, which is sad, which hikes up my price for the product that I'm selling to Kenyan. I have to buy a Kenyan raw material at import pricing to produce another Kenyan product to then charge my client that kind of pricing. So I think that this really, again, boils down to policy change and how we can encourage the government. How we can encourage production for local use, and that will, and by doing that, we can then start creating economies of scale across all of our small businesses and start, then ramping up and creating more investment for production.
Yes, I think that would be correct, and it all boils down to production capacity. We have quite a lot of gaps, and not just on sustainable regenerative fashion, but as a whole industry, we do not have the capacity to compete, not even outside, but even within, and that's majorly because we are not highly mechanized. You would assume if I don't know who's the designer here, but if you get an order from for export, or even for maybe from Deacons to supply 6,000 pieces in a month, you do not have for your consumers. So we need to be also as diverse in terms of productions with the production facilities we have. And last but not least, I think it's as Chris as Neha said, sorry. We need to look at policy from a very, broader scale, and for us to get there, we need all fashion lovers to be conscious about the needs of the industry. One of which right now is capacity. Second is the influx of polyester. And if you do not speak out, the government will not hear. So we need everyone to play their role for us to speak out, so that we're able to actually address and meet the gaps.
So just to add on to that, I think one of the things that we really need to also think about is collaborating with all of the countries around us. And I think that will really tap into the full potential of production and collaboration, because right now one of the major problems, I think, with our continent in general is the tax barriers that are completely prevalent across every single country, which is really hindering our potential as a continent. And I think this is one of the most important policy changes that really does need to be made, because if we can start collaborating with our neighboring countries all over the continent, can you imagine the kind of trade and flow and potential that we can really start working on?
When Lisa asked the question, I wanted to scream, EPR, EPR. Then I remembered that these policies can even take years and years to be implemented. And I think, just like as it was said, it's all in our hands. We can't wait for the government to help us or other institutions. Again, it's something that we really pioneer for at ACT. I always say the ACT story is a story of hope. 13 years ago, Alex set out, handed out all these business plans to people and proposals, and people are like, Textile West. Now we don't see the hope in that. And right now, as we speak, as I said earlier, the fashion industry is in panic. Everyone is wondering, with all these clothes, by the way, I think over 100 million tons of clothes are produced every year. Just like the plants that we grow, we eat them and we consume them, then they grow again. These clothes are, I think, most of the clothes that we wear will take even over 200 years to decompose. You see, how do we live with them? Yeah. Anyways, I think if we pioneer for infrastructure, if we are the key leaders in processing textile waste, like right now there's going to be a new style of sorting. It's like, for example, at ACT, we sort the textile waste that we collect through wearability. So non-wearables, we now process them by upcycling or recycling, and then wearables, we put them back in a circular system through a reseller program, so they keep in a circular system. But now the world is focusing more on fiber composition. So we need to know what, with the polyester we are collecting and the nylon we are collecting and the cotton we are collecting, how do we specifically target these specific fabrics? Like, how do we process them specifically? For example, we have a partner in Switzerland called Winter and Company, who uses the cotton, the virgin cotton we collect for them to make paper, you see. So we need to really pioneer with infrastructure, and the only way we can do it is if we all do it together. We can't wait for the government or these whole unions to help us with all that.
Yeah, what is unfortunate for, so we have AFTA, however they say it, the African Free Trade Agreement that's already in place. Kenya is part of the 7-country pilot that has been running now for the last 2 years, yeah. And then just speaking about EPR as well, the extended producer responsibility, which all designers and garment manufacturers are going to be, are subjected to. By the way, it's 100% mandated in Kenya. It's compulsory by every single producer. There's just not a policy on textiles yet. I sit on the task force, so very soon we are going to be having those mandates and policies on textile, for the extended producer responsibilities for textiles. And also the PROs, we don't also, I'm sorry about all these acronyms. Yeah, so a PRO is a producer responsibility organization. They're the ones who implement the extended producer responsibility by the manufacturers. So the extended producer, so the manufacturers have to hire these PROs to carry out the end of life of every single product that they produce. So even a bread maker, which bread is there in Kenya? Oh, I can't remember. Whatever called, like, okay, super bread or whatever, super loaf. So they have to think about the plastic that they use to wrap their bread in. and they are 100% responsible for it. So NEMA actually goes and fishes brands out of the rivers and the lakes and the dump sites, and then they go straight to those producers, and they'll give them a 3-month warning, and then they will come and find them. And if they do not heed to that, the businesses get shut down. So it's very, very strict right now. So I mean, all the manufacturers are quite aware of that. But for us,
Let me just add, Lisa, you were saying African,
the
free trade union
agreement.
Now, even with East Africa opening up the store in Kampala, we tried to tap into that, right? To get all of our local Kenyan brands registered as Kenyan brands. Do you know how impossible that is?
You didn't let me finish, and I said we have the best laws. As you know, Kenya has the best laws. East Africa has even better ones. Africa has even better. African Union has the implementation is zero or even negative.
Because it is completely bureaucratic and costly for small business enterprises.
Yeah, and even for large. I mean, the implementation is zero because whoever is in charge of implementing and even consequenting it, whatever that word should be, are absent. It's vacant. Those positions are completely vacant, and nobody care, and they do not care enough. But again, I go to these decolonization platforms. This is the way our systems were designed. There's actually no way out of our systems. So let us not, we cannot even blame the government. These systems are in place. They're there. As when we trade in dollars, we are obligated to colonial rules that still hold us. We are not producer countries. We're not innovator countries. Our education system does not produce innovators. So we are supposed to still, to date, produce raw material. And we are not consumers of those raw materials. They're imported and they're sold back to us 4 times to consume. So those are the paradigms that need to be shifted. And that's what you're talking about. The power is in our hands. The power for me is in the Jay-Z's hands. Change your consumer patterns. Do not be sold into fast fashion. We're not there yet because we don't have the money. So let us just continue to consume slow fashion. I was raised in the 70s and 80s. There was nothing like that. We only shopped twice a year. I think it was Christmas and maybe your birthday. Right? And you look forward for just those 2 days, but you're not even looking forward because you're kind of like satisfied. Like you knew that those were the 2 days and that was it. Unless there are weddings that came up somewhere in between. And then that was it. And it was so normal. When I left Kenya in the 80s, there was nothing like plastic. You go to the grocery stores, everything was in brown bags. I remember the bread, oven door in Westlands was all brown bags. So to come back now in 2011 to find so much plastic, because then it was banned very shortly. But it's been, Gen Z, why aren't we making noise about this? Why aren't we taking to the streets about these other bags that were being sold, that they're giving us, these non-wovens? Do you know that they contain more plastic than the plastic bags? Absolutely, they're 100% synthetic, and they're non-woven. If you take a plastic bag to these non-wovens, there's actually more plastic in the non-woven. So we've been conned. And anyway, so this takes me to the next question, which will be the last because we've put everything together. But how do we invest now as private? Now we've decided the government is out of our business, right? As private citizens, how do we invest in the next generation, which is our hope, in talent innovation? What will that take to now completely shift the paradigm?
I think I would say awareness, like speaking more. I think personally, on my side, I like calling myself an African fashion advocate. So even with all my platforms, I'm always talking about fashion, like, hey guys, do you know we all have a role to play? Let's like wake up and do what we have to do. So I think awareness is where it's failing us. Kenyan Fashion Council have a very beautiful program for the youth. Sometimes I wish I could leave my job and then just join the Kenyan Fashion Council, but I can't. But then I realize there's all these things happening and people don't know about them. And we can't blame everyone, but if we keep on shifting our mindset slowly by slowly, we'll get there. I was telling Bakita earlier, I think the first event Janet threw, it was about 15 people. I remember we even had to take away the extra seats and just like create a small circle and talk amidst ourselves. But there's 100 people. Like, I was so happy to see all of you here. And yeah, awareness, let's speak more about this. I was actually excited when I saw everyone's phone out there. Like, slowly by slowly, the next time the Fair Fashion Festival is happening, Embe should be full. And soon, on the 16th of November, me and Krista,
She's obviously, her spirit is here.
Krista is Neha's partner. They run the artisanal gallery together. So yeah, me and Neha are hosting a ram and weave event, and marketing material will be out soon. Yes. So I hope I'll see everyone there, because this is going to become like a regular thing. Yeah.
So I have to introduce Professor Igadwa Masiagi from Moi University. He has flown in just at the nick of time, because we were just now talking about his part, which is how do we talent develop, how do we innovate, how do we get investors into our space and affect infrastructure for the textile industry and the apparel industry for Kenyans, so that we can compete in the global markets. And I know you've come from very big conferences and you have so much knowledge to share with us, Professor.
Good evening, everyone. Apologies, I've just come from Tunis. It's weird that in Africa you have to go to Middle East or to Europe to come back to Africa. There's no flight through Cairo or through any other city or even Addis. That was very weird. Supposed to have come in yesterday. I left yesterday. I left yesterday morning from Tunis. Had to go to let's say Dubai. Then the flight was full, so I had to leave today morning.
Introduce yourself also.
My name is Josephat Igadwa Mwasiagi. I'm a professor of textile and fashion at Moi University. Currently, we are trying to also set up a fashion department at Open University of Kenya. So we're trying to look into this space, and we're asking ourselves, how can we change Kenya? Because there is so much that can be done, but there's so little that we are doing. Looking from different angles, in Kenya we export about 0.5 billion USD per year, and most of it goes to the US, about 70%, and very little goes to, let's say, Europe. Why do we sell very little into Europe? It is because our designing part is still not up to standard. It is still a little bit low. Let me give in some numbers. Like Pakistan, they export about 20 billion. Bangladesh is far much more. But let's look at the lead exporter, China. They're at 250 billion. Now 250, we are at 0.5. So even if you go 10 times, you'll be at 5 billion. 5 billion export worthy from Kenya will cause a big change. We'll have most of you being running up and down, trying to, let's say, get this order done. We'll have everything coming up. So we need to sit down and ask ourselves, how do we change? Allow me to give in a small story. In 1980s, a Moi University staff member went for a conference in London for the first time, from when he was born. So he was very keen to buy something from London to bring back to Kenya. So he went and bought a suit somewhere there, and he was very happy with his suit. So when packing in the evening, he opened inside and saw Raymonds made in Kenya. Eldoret, Kenya. So he went all the way to London to buy a suit that was just made at his doorstep. But now we're not doing so well. At the international level, I'm just come from a meeting, Intex, INTEX. We're trying to go into Intex too, whereby we want to see how do we assist the Kenyan economy, the Kenyan artisan, the Kenyan fashion designer, the Kenyan manufacturer, to be able to take advantage of the situation that we are in. We are in a situation whereby everybody is crying that we need sustainable textiles. Now, since our textile is down, we can bring it up in a sustainable manner. When we put up a textile factory now, we are starting from, it's like we are starting from scratch. We can buy in the best, we can buy in the latest machines that are energy efficient. We have machines that use less water, we can buy those ones. In Tunis, I visited a factory that had a machine that was using a ratio of 1 to 12 for water, but now they have moved to a ratio of 1 to 4. That means if you're using 12 liters to dye 1 kg, now they'll be using 4 liters to dye 1 kg. Those machines are now in the market. So we can go straight away there. Okay. In some factories, let me avoid mentioning names. We have machines that go up to maybe 1 to 40. Those are the old machines. Yeah, those are the old machines. They let's say use for 1 kg, they are using 40 liters. But now there was 12, now we have machines that are at 4. But we even have machines that are using some other technology. It is called waterless dyeing. So if you go waterless dyeing, it's like we'll be able to dye without using water. So we are not using the blue water, which is scarce. Okay, we are trying to work into many spaces. One of them is the policy. I'm currently in some committee together with the Ministry of Industry, and we are trying to look into how best do we make a policy that will attend to these issues. And I'm in the Apex committee, but the other committee is going around the country, collecting data, collecting information, doing public participation. So I don't have the schedule yet, but I think I should be able to share so that you can go there and give your views, because by December, we'll have a cabinet paper that will be considered, and maybe by next year, we'll have a new policy. So all these things are happening. I think it's a very interesting space to be in. We need to change the narrative. We need to change the way we make clothes and the way we use clothes and the way we dispose of clothes. I'm really trying to look at the facilitator or the chairperson so that I don't spend too much time or really go out of line.
That's exactly what we needed
Yeah.
from you. You've touched on like all the points that I think
Yeah,
we've talked
thank you very
about
much.
the entire time. So thank you so much as the authority.
So I think for me, when we talk about all of these conversations, the biggest, one of the biggest hindrances that I've seen in my industry is this competitive nature that Kenyans have, and that fear that they have that someone's going to copy my style or my production process or whatever it is. I think we really need to move far away from that, and one of the ways is just this mindset change, behavior change, to go into a more collaborative versus competitive mindset thinking when we are talking with ourselves, within ourselves, to each other in this industry. We need to be able to work together. That this culture really needs to start coming through from everyone throughout the value chain. We need to be able to work together as designers, as brands, as production facilities to, create a culture where we're working together across.
There's something I read recently about as long as the fashion industry has this model of growth, it can never be sustainable. And when I was looking at a recent collection, and what that designer did is that they did not style up, they did not produce new clothing, they just produced better clothing. And I think that's where the investment should be, and that is what should be sustained. But going back onto your collaborative space, I remember like having to give a business plan, and they're like, who's your competition? Who's your competition? I said, But how can I have competition when I want the world to be restored? Can you compete with me to restore the planet? How is that I can't even fathom how that is competition. If somebody else is coming to restore the earth, like, how is that competition?
This is again where
there's a different word.
Yeah, this is again where it starts at the grassroots level. My kids are in school and I see what they're learning in school, and it's about competition and da 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 da, especially in the business classes. It really needs to be rewritten at that level to actually encourage kids to be able to speak a different type of narrative versus, like, instead of competition, and always have this more collaborative culture that starts at the root in our schools. You know, this is a whole education class that needs to be implemented within our systems everywhere, because they're not learning this, they're learning it on a very small scale.
I think Brian can talk about that. How can the Fashion Council play a role in really affecting the education systems? And I think, Professor, you can talk about that. How do we get to implement, we spoke earlier about having kids from ECD level into primary school and whatever, to have this consciousness, to have this ethical fashion sense. And I don't want to even say fashion sense, it's ethical in everything that you do, an ethical lifestyle. Yeah, that even starts from the way you eat, the way you talk, the way you live your life.
Okay, as a Fashion Council, we have two subcommittees in different government ministries that we sit, and within the Ministry of Culture there is the Creative Economy Support Bill, which was brought before the Senate some time back, and then we also have a task force within the Ministry of Labor that advocates for reintroduction of skill-based curriculum. One of it is actually art and fashion and design. So we are trying to work with government and different education stakeholders to see how best to reintroduce, now that we are shifting from 844 into a more linear education system. Yeah, so we basically would like to see a more a paradigm shift as far as education is concerned, and have children, you know, undertake practical courses or subjects from the onset. And the other thing probably that I can, in our experience as Fashion Council, that we've observed is, for instance, if you go to any retail space, maybe in town, and you want to buy a shirt or anything, one of the things I notice personally, I get into a shop and I want to buy a shirt. It's from Turkey, it's indicated 100% cotton, but there's nothing cotton about it. So there are certain gaps that don't necessarily need new legislation to work on, but I think if we can work with KEBS, and the Fashion Council is trying to do that, and I think Prof will mention more on regulations and standardizations. I think it's behooving upon us to speak out as advocates of our industry and hold government accountable, especially on matters where there are gaps or there are overlaps or people are sleeping on the job. So I think when it comes to checks and balances, there's someone sleeping on the job when you have a shirt from Turkey coming in and it's indicated 100% cotton and it's polyester. So we have to start there as well. So perhaps.
Do we have a consumer watchdog?
Now, in terms of that, I think how Kenya Bureau of Standards was empowered was to a level that would enable it check what's coming in and see whether it adheres and meets the standards that have been labeled there. So that's where we have gaps, and I think we are working extremely hard. Our chair sits at one of the KEBS committee, so we are trying to really work hard and hold government accountable. I know there's a lot of challenges KEBS have, especially when it comes to underfunding, to see how best they can scale up, especially at the point of entry. But I think that one of the key areas we've been trying to lobby as council is for government to scale up funding for KEBS so that they're able to actually meet on their demands.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're on.
Yes. A few things come to mind. I hear there's something in labor, and now there's something in the Ministry of Industry. So again, back to the same story. What the left hand is doing, the right hand is not even aware. Because the Ministry of Industry is now really working on a CTA, Cotton Textile Apparel Policy. And they're really up and down, and they're really running up. I think last week they were in Bungoma collecting stakeholder information. Yeah, so again, I hear there's something in the Ministry of Labor, so I'm asking myself, maybe what's happening. Anyway, regulation is a big thing. KEBS also is an area whereby I've worked in that space for quite a while. I'm the chairperson of the ready-made garments, TC 67. I'm also the chairperson of ARSO, African Standard Organization, TC 53. But what do I have to write about? Very little, because you sit in meetings, you come up with very nice regulations. Like we've been working on one about school uniform. Looks a very simple thing, but we think it can revolutionize the whole country, because if all the about 8 million students or pupils were dressed by Kenyans, by material made in Kenya, grown in Kenya, we'll have a big change in the economy. That's what I've been trying to say. Because currently you can go into your computer and you make your order from India. Size small, 50 pieces. Size this, 70 pieces.
But Professor, even the uniform manufacturers here are not held against any standards, and this is the thing that I've been lobbying against for the school that my kids go to, is that half the uniform that's produced is polyester.
But the uniform that you have, I don't think was made in Kenya. I've just told you can go to your computer and order from India. Yeah, that information I have, not from KEBS, but from my own or whatever.
Potentially a policy change for at least schools to have some sort of standards, some sort of regularization for kids, because nowadays when I see kids, they're directly being affected by these consumer goods, and I can see eczema, I can see so many skin conditions starting to pop up. And it's really sad.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Now, let me give you an overview of what really happens from a technical point of view. We make very nice standards, and we help people. Council is there, professor is there. We make very nice standards. For example, one of the standards says that the cloth must not contain any carcinogenic dyes. Very nice statement, very nice. The KEBS person at the port has got no equipment to measure. So he looks at it and looks very good. I mean, you follow. So the problem we have is that we don't have capacity. I don't know whether you've gone to some airport and they do a tab on you and they take it to some machine and then they tell you go, or they hold you back. That machine is called a spectrophotometer. It's quite expensive. But if an airport can have it, why can't just a country have it? Yeah, so that's the case, people, because you can have a machine just pass that fabric there and it will give you some graphs. And there's a level whereby that graph will tell you, no, this one has to go for further tests because it is having something that is banned. But I think, as you said, somebody somewhere is not being very serious, because we just need to buy those machines at the border, Mombasa, and maybe Malaba, but I don't know whether most of you know. Most of these are now coming from Mandera. Most of the uniforms are coming from Mandera. They don't come through Mombasa or through Malaba. They come through Mandera, through Somalia. So I mean, of course, they cross from the Somalia, whatever side. So the laws, I feel, are fairly well. The standards are quite good. Implementation is the issue, and the worst part also, there's something this thing of chai, or I don't know, is it chai or tea or whatever, makes it very worse. But let's not be a lamentation forum. let's wake up and try to go into that space. Currently where I stand, I've just come from Intex conference. We are trying to see whether we can bring up something like 5 or 6 factories, thicker cloth mills, Sunflag, Rivertex. They make the initial material. And we want to push them to make it to the standard that we want. We want them to make, and by the way, the move is now to avoid blends. Blends are just a mess. Polyester cotton, polyester viscose, they are just a mess. So we want to have either 100% polyester or 100% cotton. Because when we come to the end of life, we can recycle all these materials. As soon as you have polyester cotton, recycling becomes very, very expensive. So the move now is towards one fiber, one fabric. So if maybe our factories start doing something on that line, we'll have the uniforms. We picked a very simple thing. We feel if we can just perfect uniforms, and designers don't think that there is no designing there. There's a lot of designing. You can come there and talk to schools and they can pick up your nice design, and if you design for one school, you'll have a lot of other people, the parents, when they want to do a few other things, it will really help. Now, quickly, I had something about, I don't know, something in the curriculum, in the school. I wasn't aware, because just from the conference, I've proposed, and I think I have just discovered something new, that we bring it to the primary school, that we teach fashion. Now here is that maybe there was some initiative, so maybe I should pick it up, because I was in Estonia, Tallinn, in March. I met 11-year-old who knew so much about what to wear, what not to wear, and that was just an 11-year-old. So let us start thinking about what we need to wear, about sustainability from a very early age, so that even if I'm not textile, even if I'm less a computer scientist, even if I'm a medical doctor, I can look at a cloth and say, I don't want this. This one doesn't like, this is not cotton, this is going to cause problem. And I think we can do better by having consumer awareness. We are the bosses, the consumers are the bosses. If you make your clothes and we don't buy, you will have to change. But currently, the retailers they are running the show. They play around with us, they do a lot of marketing, so we keep on running after what they have made. And we don't seem to care. Is it durable? Is it okay? Was this made ethically? Was the dye used properly? Was the cotton grown properly? These are conversations. Sorry to say, like now, Kenya, we are talking about BT cotton. Everybody's running away from whatever BT cotton. So I was at the minister and I asked them, have you looked at India? People are saying no more BT cotton. Now here you're giving farmers, this year, they've just given farmers BT cotton. So there's still a lot of awareness. We need to go even maybe, people need to be aware that there are things that we need to change. Polyester, I don't know whether you are aware that polyester is causing a lot of problems. There are microfibers that go into the water, the fish are taking it and you are eating it. Already now it has been proven that we have microfiber in our system, which we take from maybe our animals, the cows, the goats, the fish. This is already there. So I don't know what we are waiting for. So I think we should just wake up and say no more of this, because we are killing ourselves slowly. Yeah, that's what I may want to add for now. Thank you.
Fantastic. So first of all, I just want to thank you for such an amazing, hand clap. Yeah, for a fantastic and informative conversation. I think we've come out with, questions, but a lot of zeal and oomph as well. I want to say, what is the one thing that you've taken away from this conversation, and one thing that you can always implement in your life? Because it starts with you, and you with your community, and then your community influences like that. So we'll just open the floor for a couple of questions. I know you had one. We'll just take 5 questions.
So I have a question to the member of the Fashion Council. So you're talking about introducing skill-based for the CBC curriculum. So far we have the learners in CBC are learning home science, of which for most of us who didn't do fashion and design in school, our love for fashion started there. Don't you think we should introduce the fashion and design in the curriculum instead of reintroducing it as a whole subject, because there's an issue of the learners having too much subjects to deal with compared to the 844 system?
Yes, and that's why we actually sit at a government committee on behalf of the textile industry, and one of our concerns is that we should relook at home science differently and introduce textile and apparel as fashion design. So that's one of the key mandate of the Fashion Council in that committee. So we do hope that we'll build consensus and reintroduce fashion as a subject on its own.
Well, I have three things to say. One, this is the most info. I've learned so much in this 1 hour. I'm even surprised. Secondly, how does one get to join the fashion committee? Is there a way students can join? And then thirdly, there's a mention on some event that's happening. I would very much like to attend it. So is there further communication that's could be made? Thank you so much.
Maybe I'll take one, how you can join the council. First, let me say the council is not like an association. It's like a think tank of the industry's best brains. We harness your ideas and channel them into policies, into legislative framework, into advocacy. So there's quite a lot that we can do. My colleague here sits, she's in charge of trade and IR, and she's trying to do something with second hand, and we are trying to address the issue of mitumba at the sorting level, where there's and most of our traders, even at Gikomba, say when they receive the bale of mitumba, they have about just 60% that they can actually sell it, and the rest goes the rest is waste. So we are trying to address that at the entry point by telling them, look, they say back to sender. So we would like them to sort the mess at the base and address it. So the easiest way to join the council is to just log into our website, www.kenyafashioncouncil.co.ke. As a student, there's different cadres of membership, and you will be assisted. And there's also an email, info@kenyafashioncouncil.co.ke. You'll be able to be assisted. But the reason why we have the council is so that we need your brains so that we can actually make the industry a better place, and that's why we work with all members to change the industry.
Oh yeah, so about Ram and Weave. The event is mainly to celebrate weavers, or the skill of weaving in Kenya, and how we are now combining it with modern upcycling and fashion. So as Neha mentioned, TAG is a market space for African designers, and we, Africa Collect Textiles, use weaving as one of our models for upcycling. For example, we, for every African queen rag that we sell, we divert 44 old or used jeans from landfills. But now, most of the weavers in the market right now, even like the unions of weavers, most of them are becoming elderly. And the young people are not finding interest in this skill. But let me tell you a secret. Our weaver, Amimo, makes 33K for every rag that she weaves. Imagine leaving uni. I'm still in uni. I feel like if I could do that, I will. Yeah, but I love my job so much. But yeah, like if I knew I could make 33K a week, I'm down, like I'm sorted. So during this event, you come and learn how to weave on a small mini loom, a prototype we came with, and then you'll have rum to sip while you're at it, and then you'll be surrounded by beautiful. Have you guys been to TAG? Has anyone here been to TAG? Yes. You don't know what you're missing. Yes, so TAG is at the Gigiri food courtyard. You should visit it, but all of you are coming on the 16th, right? Advertising begins on Monday. You should check out Africa Collect Textiles. You'll be able to book your tickets. But yeah, come, let's see, as we said, awareness, and then finding more fun in fashion. We lost it, but it's coming back. Exactly, growing together.
Africa Collect Textiles is one of the companies that is being mentored by Intex. Intex is INTEX. For those with the phones, you can go to www.unep.org/INTEX. We are mentoring 12 SMEs in Kenya, and Africa Collect Textiles is one of them. They have done very well. And we made a video about them 2 years ago. That video has really given them a lot of, it's called viral. Yeah, and they are very happy. If you go again to www.intex.mu.sc.ke, you will find that video there. www.intex.mu.sc.ke, you will find that video there. It shows about the second-hand clothes, what happens to them, and what Africa Collect Textiles are, let's say, doing. You are fashion designers. The second-hand clothes, in my view, is an opportunity that should not be fought, but should be harnessed. We are importing 185,000 tons of second-hand clothes into Kenya. 185,000 tons of second-hand clothes into Kenya. You can cry much about it, but let's look at history. In Spain, because the labor there is slightly cheaper than maybe Germany or let's say Brussels, Belgium, so on and so forth. That's the country they do a lot of recycling, because recycling is much more of labor intensive. There's a lot of labor. Like sorting, there's a machine. You try to work with it, it gets mixed up. But a human being, we can train you quickly, just even by you feel it's a little bit warm, it's a little bit cold. You can easily tell this is cotton, this whatever. You can easily see the colors. So there's a lot of work there. Let me put it this way. I know people will want to, let's say, pick up stones and then whatever, but you are free to do what you want to do. The first fashion is there. Before it ends, even if you work very hard, it may take the next 10 years. Because like now, an average Western person, that means USA, Europe, they take about 14 pieces per year. This is what they buy. And then they dispose a similar amount per year. Now, where they are now, of course, there's a lot of push for them to stop. There's a lot of push, that's why it's like they are passing a lot of laws to try and cool them down. They are overusing textiles. Meanwhile, this material is somewhere, someplace. Like in Kenya, we have 185,000 second-hand clothes. So what do we do with it? Let's recycle it. ACT, they take it, they work on it, their market is Europe. So a very clever way. Yeah, they are sending it back as value added. So I don't know why we are complaining. Let's go to Gikomba. We pick them, we say, hii ni rubbish, takataka. Once you reach your home, you say, nimeshaangukia. Yeah, that's the raw material. You add value, you do something. Like the rags they do, they are very good. And they are really going like hotcakes. So attend to go to that event, pick up some idea, come up with something, recycle all that material, and you may make some money. I remember in 2020, it was just after Corona, 2021, I met the president of Estonia, a lady. She shocked everybody by saying what I'm wearing is recycled. Somebody went and picked a piece there, a whole president, imagine. A whole president. And furthermore, a lady. She said, and she was very proudly, my clothes, and it looked very nice, a piece here, a piece there. To me, must have been designed by the latest whatever. He said, no, it was designed by a student from Estonia Academy of Arts, who went to the second-hand clothes, picked different pieces, designed it for me, and I've come here to wear. That's good. So, and we did some work with them, and with some other people, and we dressed some politician in Kenya, very famous, a lady. I'm half of whether I should mention the name or not, but we dressed somebody. If you saw that dress she was wearing, because she wore it, you will think it was bought in London or somewhere. It was not, yeah, so please, let's think on those lines. There's a lot of, some of these things come once in a while. I think the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can make a lot of money from that trash. And before people realize you have made your money, you are very innovative. You'll move to something else. Our sister here has been running about banana, so on and so forth. We have launched the banana project. There is no capacity. So we launched it in Uganda. We are using technology from Pakistan. We are bringing the machine. We'll soften it. We'll send it to Pakistan, and then Interloop, INTERLOOP, are making a T-shirt and a jean. The president of Blessed Uganda has already been given one. I wasn't given one, so this one is not that one. They are still very expensive, but that's where we are going. H&M have pumped in about 2 million USD. Very soon we will be having material made out of, made out of banana. Now I know that will be the selling point, but it's only 20% banana. But 20% banana, let's look at it this way, and I will look at Pakistan. I will look only at Pakistan. Pakistan uses 4 million tons of cotton per year. 4 million tons. So 20%, it will mean something close to 1 million ton that will be saved from the cotton. We will now use banana, which was being thrown away. So that is the change, the impact that H&M has seen. And Interloop, a company that is having several factories, and in Pakistan they have 30,000 workers. I was there. So huge a company, so big. The export is about 5 billion, more than Kenya is only 0.5 billion. That's one company. So there are a lot of things happening there. So that's banana fiber. We are working on sisal. I've just taken up half a ton of sisal again to Pakistan. Nobody funds me here, so I have friends there who let's say fund me. So we are now doing research. We are trying to soften it so that we can use it into the apparel sector, because currently it can be used just as a rag. But if we soften it, we can even if we use 10%, sisal is very organic because it doesn't use fertilizer, doesn't use much water. So we want to bring some of those fibers, and there are others: pineapple, nettle. There are very many. There are very many. There are so many. So please move into that space. Hemp. Uganda, you can let's say grow. Kenya, they are still wanna debate whether to grow or not to grow. So those are the areas that I'm let's say talking about, and I think you should look into that. Sorry, if you allow me, there's a form that I've given to Janet. Janet, she just walked away. She was around here.
There.
Janet,
Behind the tree.